Let's learn about this immigrant from Spain today on Antique Bottle Stories. Diego Palliser was born in 1832 on Menorca Island, Spain. Here's his naturalization records that say he came over when he was 15 on a boat named Catalonia in 1848, and he'd been here ever since. This paper was filled out in 1896, and he actually died the following year, so he was here almost 50 years before becoming an American citizen. So in 1854, about 7 years after he got here, when he was 22, he married Susan Stafford, who was actually born in Ireland. They had 5 children together. By 1860, age 28, he's already in the bottling business. Then I found an 1860 slave record with his name on it. I was thinking maybe he was a slave, but actually, he owns 1 black female slave, which is probably this female day laborer listed in the household, Kathy Stafford, age 30. Remember, this is before the Civil War. And by 1870, he's 37, and he's listed with his family. Miss Kathy is no longer living there. Here's an 1879 city directory with Diego, now age 47, and his sons are now working age. Diego Jr. and Joseph are now clerks at their dad's bottling factory. And there's Frank, who's a traveling salesman for an Alabama steam bakery. The bottling factory was also their residence. See how it says, resides near the corner of Bayou and Dolphin, which I think might be this building. By 1891, Diego Sr. is now 59 years old. Diego Jr. is about 33. Diego Sr. died 1897 at age 67. His son Joseph died the following year at age 43. He was so young. In 1888, Diego Jr. is married to Margaret, but by 1900 he's living with his brother and single, and by 1910 Diego is living with his sister. In 1914, Diego Jr. died at age 55. Out of all 5 of Diego's kids, Margaret ends up living the longest. She lives to be 70. It doesn't look like she ever married or had kids. Anyways, they're all buried together in a family plot in Alabama. There's a book published in 2003 that has all the known dates for this company based on city directories, and they found that Diego Sr. started this bottling company around 1885, but I showed you earlier that it actually started as early as 1860. But they have the transition date, which I couldn't find, of when it stopped being called D. Palliser Soda Works to right around 1900 being called D. Palliser's Sons Soda Works. According to their findings, they show them in business until about 1918, which is a few years after Diego Jr. died. I guess one of the other siblings kept it going for a while. I thought maybe Frank, but he actually died before Diego Jr. did in 1904 in his mid-40s. These guys were all so young. Okay, so there were 5 of them. Diego Jr., Joseph, Frank, Margaret, and there was a Charles, who's a mystery. I see him in 1870, age 9, with his family, but that's the last concrete paper trail I see for him. I see a few Charles Pallisers in England, so he might have moved, or that's just a different Charles altogether. It's possible maybe Charles died as a child. So, looks like if the business was still going, there was only Margaret alive to do it. So it could have been that maybe a family friend or an old employee kept the business going for a couple more years. My bottle is a D. Palliser's Sons bottle. So this is after Diego Sr. died and the business changed over to the boys. So now I know it dates anywhere between 1900 and 1918, but this is a Hutchinson bottle. And Hutch bottles were produced between the mid-1880s and no later than 1912. So this bottle now dates between 1900 and 1912. That circle around the name is what we call a slug plate. A slug plate is a metal plate which is inserted into the bottle mold. The plate would be embossed in reverse so that the letters would read correctly on the finished bottle. This sometimes caused errors on bottles where the letter or the numbers is backwards, which bottle collectors really like. Slug plates allowed smaller businesses to customize their own logo on a plate for just a few dollars, and you could change them out easily, as opposed to customizing the whole mold, which was more costly. This glass is purpling, which means that it's manganese glass, which means it was originally aqua, but the bottler wanted to treat the aqua glass with manganese to make it a colorless bottle. This colorless glass will turn different shades of purple or amethyst as it's exposed to sunlight. If I wanted it to be really bright purple, I could put it under UV light. Sometimes you see these really bright purple bottles, and those have been done on purpose. And that's all I've got for today. We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.